Hey everyone, welcome back. So I did an interview with Bryce McNallie from McNallie Money on Sunday. His video of the interview should be coming up, or should be already posted, I believe. This is just my version of it, the same one. So I'm hoping to introduce new members to his channel as he's helping me introduce new channel members to my channel. So we talked about a couple of things here. Obviously, what's going to happen with the Halving event. We talked about some of the companies as well. We talked about other things, how I got started, how he got started, and everything else in that. So it's kind of fun interview, about 20 minutes worth in length. So I'll leave you guys to it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below.
Okay,
Thanks.
guys, so that's right. Today's video, we've got a special guest. We've got a Bitcoin miners and stock analyst in the community here, Sebastian. You may follow him on Twitter, or maybe you've checked out his videos on YouTube, but I wanted to invite him on the channel, learn a bit about himself, why he set the channel up, and his outlook on the crypto and Bitcoin mining space. So Sebastian, thanks so much for joining us here today.
Sure, Bryce. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem at all. So to kick things off, I know your channel's grown quite a bit here over the last couple of months. Really impressive. You've been putting out, I think, a video a day, which puts me to shame, Sebastian. I'm hoping to do 2 a week on a lucky week. But can you tell us a little bit about the channel, what kind of inspired it, and what the general kind of theme or topic is that you discuss?
Yeah, sure. So I started the channel kind of out of boredom back in, well, when we had the pandemic. But prior to that, I also managed a small Bitcoin mining farm that had 240 of the S19 miners. We had some D3 miners, L3 miners as well. We had GPU miners. And all that experience over the 5 years that I managed it, I noticed the cyclical cycles that we had in Bitcoin and the network hash rate, everything else that played into it. So I had a lot of data that I could pull off of from that experience, bring it into the actual Bitcoin miners themselves. I got interested in that was in 2017, and I got invested in Hive at that time, 2017, 2018. Obviously, we were coming down off of a bull run, getting into a bear market. The stocks actually went down, so I dollar cost averaged into it. Then come 2021, we had the bull run again. I thought the cycle was going to go up higher. I didn't sell at that time, so I'm still holding Hive. But I learned a lot from that experience. I also learned to do a lot more better job on keeping the data of all these miners, seeing how they're performing month to month, quarterly, annually, and where are they growing and how are they progressing going forward. So that's kind of where my channel is at right now. It's just about talking about the Bitcoin miners, how they're doing, what they need to do to grow into the halving event, and really what they should be doing instead of what some of them are doing, I guess you could say.
Fair enough. Yeah, so I've got a few questions for you. But before we get into a bunch of it, are you still doing any mining on your own, or was that a public company or private company, or just kind of a hobby, or what was it?
So that was actually a private company that a friend and I started. He did really well in crypto back in 2017. He poured a lot of money into it. We learned a lot of big mistakes from that. In 2017, we were at the top of the bull run. And as you know, things went south after that. We didn't get up and running until actually like the beginning of 2018, which was when the prices of everything else was falling down.
Gotcha.
So lesson learned there is build out in the bear market, get ready for the bull runs, and then you're going to be doing a lot better. So
Sure, noted. Yeah, and we've actually had we had Marathon on the channel a couple days ago, and we've talked to a lot of the CEOs about kind of the opportunity the bear market represents to build. So sorry to hear you learned that one the hard way. I too, I think I still have some shares of HUD 8 that I purchased around $17 or $18. So I bought in at the top. I got absolutely burned on the cannabis sector. So I'm hoping that Bitcoin and crypto is kind of my new lesson learned strategy here. But you said that you talk about a lot of the metrics on the channel, and I've watched quite a few of your videos myself. I'll share kind of how my channel came about in a second here, but what kind of analysis or what metrics or what kind of charts do you find most valuable in this space? Because I know there's a lot going on. There's a lot of metrics, and it is a little bit overwhelming for newcomers to Bitcoin miners.
sure. So especially as we get to the halving event, one of the most important ones I think is going to be the efficiencies of the miners. So if you look at the joules per terahash, what their overall fleet is like, that's going to be a big tell as far as how quickly they can possibly be profitable after the halving event. That's a big one there. Also, obviously, cash burn. What is their cash burn? Are they really efficient with their employees, their staff? Are they paying themselves too much? Things like that we also want to take a look at. And then obviously you have share-based compensation, but that's not a cash-based payment for them. That's different. So I try not to look at that too much, but we have seen obviously a lot of share-based compensation in there. can be a little bit boring, but as long as it's driven by growth and things like that, I'm okay with it. The other thing is obviously HODL. HODL is going to be a big one for some of these miners that are going to be going into the halving event that are not as efficient. That's going to give them a little bit of a runway to get it to the point where Bitcoin, I think, is going to be at a price where they can be profitable at that point. So whether it's a couple months, 6 months, 9 months, we just don't know what's going to happen with Bitcoin price and the network as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I know HODL mining. That was kind of my entry into this space. Is I was actually talking to a friend of a friend. He introduced me to crypto mining. HODL is located some of their farms here in Alberta, where I'm located as well, and that's how I got in. And I know they are holding over 9,000 Bitcoin in their reserve. And we've talked. Anthony Powers has been on the channel as well, and we've talked about kind of the exahash per second and some of these targets going into the halving. But I still feel it's going to be quite difficult to accumulate a massive position like that once the block reward is cut down to 3.125. What are your thoughts on that, Sebastian? Do you like the HODL strategy now, or do you like the ones that are the miners that are kind of selling as they go to build out and pay for operational costs?
I think, Fred Thiel from Marathon has stated that they ran some numbers before, and they had a 50-50 ratio where you HODL 50, sell 50% is like the best mix they can possibly do.
Okay.
I can agree with them on that. I think total HODL is not going to be sufficient going forward because you do need to grow and you need to improve your fleet efficiency. And if you sell everything, well, if you're really growing, selling everything is great if you're going in the bull run, getting ready for the bear market. So when the bear market comes, you prepare to use all that capital again, improve your fleet again. That way you're ready for the next halving event coming up, obviously every 4 years.
Yeah, I like that, the 50-50 approach. So you'd say that's kind of the sweet spot in your mind, eh?
I think so, yeah. Looking at all the data that we've seen, we've seen Hut 8 has done a great job doing with the HODL, but they've also diluted a lot of shares because of it. So that was a little concern. Now, when they're going into the halving event come next year, their fleet is also a little bit older. It hasn't been updated. I'm hoping that with the merger with USBTC, that USBTC will have at least like the 100 terahash miners that are pretty efficient, hopefully. We don't know that information yet until they do merge.
Okay, and since we're on the topic, Sebastian, the USBTC merger is definitely one that caught a lot of attention. I know they were supposed to close in Q2. We had Sue Ennis on here talking about kind of some of the delays. Maybe Q3 is more realistic. Initially, and I think you covered this as well on your channel, initially they were going into it and saying, hey, we're going to combine equal entities, about $500 million each. Together, it'll be around a $1 billion market cap. Now, Bitcoin itself has appreciated in value quite a bit since that was announced. And I know with that HODL, the market cap and the enterprise value of Hut 8 has expanded just as a result of Bitcoin price. I know USBTC is private, but I believe they don't have a big HODL. What do you think now? Is it still a fair deal? Is it still a 50-50 kind of equal partnership? Or do you feel maybe the scale has become a little bit unbalanced?
That's a good question. With the HODL position that Hut 8 does have, that has obviously driven their stock price quite tremendously here in the last 6 months, as we've witnessed. The thing with USBTC is we don't really know what's going on with them. They're a private company, so we don't have the information available to us. Now, given that they have been growing quite nicely and expanding their own BTC mining and doing other things, I'm hoping that has kind of kept up with, maybe not as close to Hut 8, but at somewhat maybe 75% or something like that. So, yeah, I just don't know how it's going to work out.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm kind of questioning too. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about Hive. I want to bring up Bitfarms as well, but because this is our first kind of collaboration here, I too started the channel during the recession. I was working a regular 9 to 5. I didn't have to commute anymore. This was kind of an interest of mine. I started covering kind of the small cap cannabis companies actually, and I just saw my portfolio slowly kind of roll over into the crypto miners. So I think I counted the other day, I've got about 107 call option contracts right now on the miners dated for 2024, 2025 January expirations. And then I've got about,
nice.
I want to say about 30 grand worth of shares in the various different companies. So Hut 8, Bitfarms, I've got some Riot, CleanSpark, TerraWolf, really trying to diversify. That was one of the big lessons I learned with cannabis is in these rapidly evolving, growing, transforming markets or industries, it's pretty risky to bet on one horse if you don't have full clarity of what's going on. So I've kind of taken that diversified approach. I don't necessarily know if you want to share numbers, but is your portfolio similar, or are you still just kind of concentrated in Hive?
No, so Hive, I basically stopped investing in them back in 2019, 2020. Yeah, 2020, I think, is when I stopped investing in them. Dollar cost averaging down, right?
Mm-hmm.
The stock price went down to like 8 cents at that time before the reverse split. So I got in pretty low. I think my average is like at 40 or 50 cents right now. So I'm just highlighting that one as it is. And then back last year, when we started getting into the bear market again, I started looking into more of the other miners, like CleanSpark, which I saw was growing quite nicely. I also thought Bitfarms was undervalued based on my calculations that I was doing on everybody. And I was like, let's maybe put a little bit in here. And then, I started buying in CleanSpark at like $9. Bitfarms, I think it was closer to $4 or $5, something like that when I started buying it. But just dollar cost average down into it through pretty much last year, all the way to the bottom that we had back at the end of last year in December. So, and then I've still been buying a little bit right now because I still think that they're way undervalued.
Okay, so on the topic, Bitfarms, I got the shirt on here. This was my top pick, so I have Anthony Powers on once a month to go through his charts, and we do a little games, kind of the top pick for the month. I put the video out on the 13th of July, and Bitfarms was at 210 US, and it's a little below 2. So I'm not doing too good on the pick right now, but I am optimistic about Bitfarms. I'm excited about South America. They had a lot of political red tape to kind of import those miners. I know they've got Argentina up and running. They're growing extensively in that country. What are your thoughts on mining outside of North America?
So obviously there's the political risk that you might, like we've witnessed with Bitfarms having trouble getting miners into the Argentina. But once that's gotten resolved, I mean, that's great that they're diversifying. They're not just stuck in the United States or in Canada, but they are diversified in other places. So if for some reason the lawmakers here in the United States or Canada ban Bitcoin mining, they still have the opportunity to do it there. I don't think it's going to happen, or a very, very small chance that might happen, but at least they're diversified there. So I do love that about them.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I was actually worried. That was one of the reasons that I didn't like Bitfarms to start with, was I thought maybe spreading themselves a little too thin. They've actually navigated that political environment pretty good, in my opinion. So that's one that I continue to buy as well. And speaking of political, we're now starting to see, so Natalie Brunell was on the channel. She's pretty high profile in this space and on Fox News, Fox Business, all that. She's interviewing some of the presidential candidates, and we're starting to hear Bitcoin, crypto, sovereign wealth, kind of a lot of that stuff coming up in the political realm as well. Do you think this is going to be a core kind of pillar for the upcoming election?
I don't think it's going to be a core. I think Bitcoin still is in its infancy right now. I think at this current time frame, we're kind of like where the internet was maybe 15 years in, something like that. Still you still had most people on dial-up. You had some people starting to get broadband at that time. We're still at the very early stages of it. So it is obviously getting more mass adoption as time goes on. And as the price kind of, I wouldn't say doesn't flatline, but it's a little bit less up and down. But we still have obviously huge peaks, huge bottoms in it. But I think over time it's going to get a little bit better as far as the way it's going to go. The more adoption we have, I think, is going to be a little bit more of a flat line. Maybe not a flat line, but just a slight increase over time, especially when we get into like 20 years from now or something like that.
Yeah, I'm hoping the volatility kind of eases. I'm really optimistic these spot Bitcoin ETFs are going to inject a lot of excitement and capital into this spot. And I think you're right there. We're naturally going to see more adoption. We've had some consolidation with Bitcoin price over the last month or so, and I'm hoping it does kind of hit the gas again. So I know I've asked you quite a few questions here, Sebastian, kind of all over the map. We didn't really have a script for this one. Anything you're curious to ask me, or anything kind of about the channel you'd like to know?
Well, obviously you got into stocks right around the same time that I did, but you get into crypto and everything else. How do you analyze some of your stocks that you invest in?
Yeah, good question. So, kind of the genesis of the channel is I was following a lot of the big channels in the States, so like Financial Education Jeremy and some of those type, and they were covering a lot of the same big blue chip companies at the time. So, Tattooed Chef and Beyond Meat and kind of the same headlines, and you weren't really seeing a lot of the small micro cap North American stuff, maybe not listed on the big exchanges. So that was kind of the genesis of the channel is, hey, I'll get more involved with these, maybe shed some light on companies that other people aren't talking about. And then I got into doing some sponsored videos, which was great to get kind of more variety on the channel. But I would supplement that with stocks that I was personally investing in. And as mentioned, the cannabis sector, I was expecting that to get legalized in the States a little bit sooner than obviously it still hasn't. So I started rotating out of cannabis. I started looking for new opportunities, and Bitcoin is something a guy talked to me about in university about 10 years ago. And as I mentioned, I was at the neighbor's house. Another guy was there, started kind of talking about HODL mining. And then I started rolling my portfolio into more of those minor positions and talking about them on the channel. And for those of you who follow this channel closely, you've noticed we've now had a number of the CEOs on. So I think I've had about 8 or 9 of kind of the biggest publicly traded Bitcoin miner CEOs or COOs or whatever on the channel. And the more I find out about this space, Natalie says the orange pill effect, but the more I read, the more I learn, the more I talk, it just seems so logical. It seems like such a perfect solution to a lot of these problems in the world. And I see the miners as a great way to invest in those companies and in Bitcoin without having some of the exposure to the actual exchanges, right? So the FTX and some of those situations where you're getting some fraudulent activity or whatever the case is. I prefer to get my exposure to Bitcoin through the miners themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great way to do it. I started out investing in Bitcoin in 2017. I held on to it since then. I haven't sold anything I added on to my position in that one. But yeah, it's definitely interesting that a lot of people would probably think the same way, is to invest in like the Bitcoin miners. MicroStrategy is another one that's a great proxy for Bitcoin that people are getting into. And then you have also the ETFs, WGMI, and others as well, that are just a great way for, I would say, maybe non-techie people to get into exposure in Bitcoin.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's kind of the biggest flaw right now is whether you're buying Bitcoin itself, the on-ramp, off-ramp, or just trying to invest in a proxy, it's hard to figure out what's going on, right? And even if you are invested in the miners, a lot of the metrics are unique to this sector, and exahash per second and terahash, and like that's not stuff you learn in a lot of the other investing areas. So now you talked about, actually just one sec here, what was that? Oh, the ETF, just a sec, I'll redo that part. Now you talked about the ETF in your last response, Sebastian, and spot ETFs on Bitcoin are all the headline right now. What do you think is going to happen there? Are we going to see the SEC kind of unanimously approve all of them? Do you think BlackRock's going to get out ahead of the pack? What do you think is going to happen there?
Well, I think then Grayscale just sent a letter to the SEC asking for a unanimous approval to all the spot Bitcoin ETFs. Right?
I just saw a tweet.
So it seems like,
yeah.
So I think they're a little maybe concerned that possibly BlackRock might beat them to it and then get all the cash that's going to be flowing into it. So I think they're trying to get it to where everybody can possibly benefit from it, which I don't think is a bad idea. BlackRock obviously, as you know, is what, $9 trillion in capital under management or something like that. So they're really huge. It would be nice to have some of the smaller guys like I think Cathie Woods is also going for it. You got Grayscale, you got others in there as well. Spread it out. I think if you're going to approve it for everybody.
Agreed. First mover advantage there is going to be absolutely massive if one of these big guys gets out ahead of the pack. So I like that. Timeline, what do you think there? Is this a month out, a year out, a quarter out? What are you thinking?
Well, the SEC has originally, 45 days from the time that it submits it, I think, to give their first initial review of it. After that, I think they have up to 180 days or 160 days. They can kick it down the road if they wanted to. I don't know how that's going to play out. I know that Gary Gensler at the SEC has not been a proponent of the spot Bitcoin ETF because of fraudulent activities that he supposedly sees on the exchanges, or so I don't know. I'm guessing maybe this year, maybe at the very earliest, sometime early next year.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking as well, maybe 4 or 5 months. And so basically my understanding is they want better visibility into trading patterns and whatever. So my understanding is they've now partnered up with Coinbase to give that visibility into some of that trading activity. So do you think that's going to be enough to push this over the finish line?
depending how much data they get from Coinbase, and is it real-time data? What kind of data are they actually getting? And then with the SEC also suing Coinbase, it's kind of like, that's a tough one to figure out which way it's going to go. But I think having visibility into the data, I think that's going to maybe push it over the line, the goal line that we needed to.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of different forces going on here. And again, I think that's why it's so good to get on shows like this and talk about it and discuss. You guys, if we've missed anything, feel free to leave a comment in the section below. Sebastian, this has been a really good discussion. I'm hoping we can kind of continue this maybe on a more frequent basis. Is there anything you'd like to leave the viewers with here before we wrap it up today?
No, just obviously do the research, you guys. That's all you can really do. Don't invest on anything that any of the YouTubers really say, but you got to do your research. I just want to preface that as always. So, and thank you for having me on. I'd love to do this again in another month or something like that.
Yeah, sounds like a plan to me for sure. Not financial advice, you guys. If you're still watching at this point, hopefully you enjoyed the discussion. You found some value. Make sure you hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to my channel, McNallie Money above. Sebastian, I've linked your Twitter and your YouTube on the screen here as well. I'll leave it in the video description for viewers in addition. And we appreciate your time. Looking forward to talking soon.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, take care.